Okay, so we've gone through that now. I think you've done very well because it's quite complicated. Let's crack on.
Prior to Charles Darwin, scientists had some rather strange ideas concerning how life began. They believed that living organisms came into being rapidly and spontaneously over a period of just a few weeks. The scientific community believed in spontaneous generation for 2,000 years. And it is a stark reminder that even a majority of scientists can be wrong. In his classic 17th century description of spontaneous generation, scientist Jan Baptist von Helmont suggested that mice came from dirty underwear.
Wanneer je een stuk gedragen ondergoed, if you put a piece of sweaty underwear in an open-mouthed jar, together with a piece of wheat, after 21 days the ferment coming out of the underwear changed the wheat into mice. But what is even more amazing is that the mice are not small or aborted mice, but adult mice emerge.
Another evidence offered for spontaneous generation was the rotting meat experiment. 17th century scientists observed that if meat was placed in an open jar, maggots formed on the meat weeks later. They conjectured that life, in the form of maggots, arose spontaneously from rotting meat. But in 1668, Francesco Redi, an Italian physician and scientist, overturned this idea. He suggested this proof of spontaneous generation was nothing more than contamination of the meat by flies. When flies landed on the rotting meat, they laid their eggs. Over time, these eggs grew into maggots. Later, the maggots changed into flies. When scientist Redi prevented flies from landing on the meat with a piece of cheesecloth, maggots never formed.
Now, they thought the same with maggots, that maggots just spontaneously generated on the meat. And when they finally did the experiment, they put the cheesecloth over. It was still being exposed to the air, but the flies couldn't get on it and lay their eggs. And so through that simple experiment, they realised that the maggots don't spontaneously generate, it's the flies that lay the eggs. Louis Pasteur takes hold of this and takes it to the next level. And he comes out with a blinding statement. Can anybody remember what that statement is? Life begets life. And the only reason why there's life in terms of maggots on that meat is because of the life of the flies laying the eggs. Louis Pasteur said, you cannot get life without life. I think that is astounding. I mean, it takes some comprehending what we were looking at then, but as Dean said, you're looking at real-time DNA, RNA replication, the folding up of the double helix, and you can see the two cells replicating as quick as they do. And inside of those cells is solid instruction code. So this is what Darwin said in his book, The Origin of Species. If it could be demonstrated that any complex organ existed which could not possibly have been formed by numerous successive slight modifications, my theory would absolutely break down. But I can find no such case. Well, of course he couldn't. That was a long time ago. Now that we know that not just the cell, but the cell is packed full of things that simply couldn't have improved slightly one bit at a time. We used the mousetrap as an example last week. Everything had to come into existence at the same time. At the end of this session, we're going to have a reading from a very respected atheist who admits that we shouldn't be here. This shouldn't be here. It's beyond a miracle, he says, as an atheist. But it is, and he still refuses to believe in God. So let's have a look at the next slide. Okay, and the next slide. DNA is irreducible complexity. This is Richard Dawkins. Yet the living results of natural selection overwhelmingly impresses us with the appearance of design, as if by a master watchmaker impresses us with the illusion of design and planning. So Dawkins sees design, but he won't call it design. He says it's the appearance of design that has come about through random chance. Random chance has brought about an appearance of design. Okay?
Evolution deals with big numbers. Some scientists have given us a way to get a grasp on those big numbers. They compare evolution to the lottery. The average odds of winning are 1 chance in 10 million. So you'll probably never win. But you open your door, and there to your shock, that big winning lottery check is delivered right into your hands. Winning the lottery once is hard enough, but life coming from an organic soup or perhaps Earth's chemical energy is far less likely. Some scientists have projected that the odds are not 1 in 10 million, that's a number with 7 zeros, but 1 to a number with 40,000 zeros after it. So imagine, the very next week, you hear a knock on your door, and sure enough, you've won again. Unheard of. But that still doesn't come close to compare with the odds of evolution. Fast forward years and years into the future, and you're still winning. But not just once a year, but every single week for 80 years in a row, you've won the lottery. Now that describes evolution's leap of faith. The odds of winning the lottery repeatedly, over and over and over again, not 20, not 40, not even 60 years, but for 80 years in a row, every single week. That's comparable to the concept of evolution's spontaneous generation of just the simplest building blocks of life, not even life itself. Now you can believe what you want, but when you understand the math, isn't that just too big a leap to take? I choose to think it points to a grand design by an almighty, omnipotent creator God. He makes it clear, "You are worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for you created all things, and by your will they exist and were created."